Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler does an about-face so fast it'll make your head spin. We're going to talk about that on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the Hot Zone. I'm back in West Virginia and it's rainy and thundery outside, but I'm still watching the news from Portland and it's actually getting kind of amusing at this point. So let's review. I was there last week when rioters were coming every night against the federal courthouse and rioting. I mean, they were trying to burn down the courthouse. You've seen the footage. You've heard me talk about it. It was absolute chaos and violence. And the response from the federal government in sending augmented amounts of federal agents up there to augment the federal force that was already there protecting the courthouse and to keep the rioters from getting into the courthouse and actually destroying it. They would have actually burned down that 15-story building if they had been allowed to. And so those agents did a great job of holding off the mob. They were very measured in their response. I was there. I saw it. They did not come out until it just got so dangerous that somebody was going to die out there. And they announced that they would be coming out with crowd control munitions many times before they actually came out. About every 5-minute increments, they would make an announcement over the loudspeaker for about a half hour at least before they came out. So things got really interesting when Ted Wheeler, the Portland mayor, showed up down there one night while I was there and tried to commiserate with the protesters and then the rioters. Check this out.
Quit your job! The reason I'm here tonight is to stand with you no matter what. I stand with you no matter what. And if they launch the tear gas against you, they're launching the tear gas against me. We are a community.
So after he got up and spoke there, he went over and stood right in front of the courthouse where the rioting was taking place. He sat there and watched the rioters committing felonies over and over and over again for more than an hour. They were throwing firebombs into the courthouse over the wall. They were shaking the fence, trying to tear the fence down. They were throwing flashbang fireworks in there. I mean, big fireworks. They're trying to breach that fence every way they could. All of those things are criminal activity. They're all illegal, against the law, and dangerous. Somebody could have died. But Ted Wheeler stood there, didn't say a word about it, right in the middle where he knew the agents would come out because he wanted to get tear gassed. And that's what happened. He came out, and this is what happened. So after he got tear gassed, he gave lots of interviews, but one of them he said, quote, "I'm not going to lie, it stings. It's hard to breathe. And I can tell you with 100% honesty, I saw nothing that provoked this response. It's nasty stuff. I'm not afraid, but I'm pissed off. This is an egregious overreaction on the part of the federal officers. There was nothing that I saw anybody do that warranted this reaction. As you can see, all it's done is piss everybody off. It's made everybody angry. They've come in and kicked the hornet's nest." Now, remember, he was saying this about people barricading the side doors of the courthouse, trying to set the courthouse on fire. I mean, they were lighting large bonfires inside the fence and trying to tear down the fence, trying to breach the doors and get into the courthouse, throwing accelerants and paint and fireworks, very big fireworks, into the courthouse. So again, people could have died. They would have gladly killed those federal agents when they did come out to drive them away. As a matter of fact, once the federal agents came out, they threw rocks and bottles and things at them and used their green lasers to try to blind them. That is felony assault. Ted Wheeler was right there and saw it all, and he says he saw nothing that would have justified that response. Well, that was last week. So In the intervening several days, the federal government made a deal with the Oregon governor and Ted Wheeler, who is the police commissioner, remember, of Portland, to have the police force, the local police and the state police, take over the responsibility of keeping this area safe. And they actually closed off the park right in front of the courthouse so that this is the park that these rioters were using as a staging area.
So our people have done, Homeland Security have done a fantastic job. They went to Oregon a little more than a week ago. The place was a mess. The city, Portland, was just a disaster. You see it, and a lot of people weren't reporting it right. They tried to pretend it was a protest as opposed to anarchists and agitators. You understand what I'm saying. It's a mess. They went there a short while ago, and they saved a federal courthouse that costs hundreds of millions of dollars. And they put a ring around the courthouse, and they saved it. But the group that's there is basically meant to save buildings, and they were very strong, very powerful. And they didn't come out too often out of this cocoon that they built in order to save these very expensive, valuable, and psychologically important buildings, right? Like courthouses. The governor and the mayor, we've been dealing with them, and we think they don't know what they're doing, because this should not have been going on for 60 days. It's not our job, unless in case of emergency, which I consider now to be an emergency. It's not our job to go in and clean out the cities. That's supposed to be done by local law enforcement. Yesterday, the governor worked a deal where they'll do it. We'll stand by, they'll do it, and that's good. Well, it was very good, but she didn't report it that way. What she reported was totally different.
So they can't do that anymore. So they kind of force them to disperse. And so by doing that, the federal agents can now stay inside the courthouse. They have not left. They're still there. They've just stayed. They've not had to come outside because the Portland police and the state police and the sheriff's deputies from that area are taking care of the security at this point.
Our people are staying there to see whether or not they can do it today and tomorrow. And if they don't do it, we will send in the National Guard and we'll take care of it. And we're telling right now these protesters, and many should be arrested, because these are professional agitators, these are professional anarchists, these are people that hate our country.
And they have declared riots. They have pushed people away and they have arrested people. And they've had people injured in the process, cops that were injured. Well, this week, now the protesters are sort of diverting their attention to other less hardened structures. Let's put it that way. So check this out. Now rioters have gone after the East Police Precinct building, which is much less hardened than the federal courthouse. They did the same thing. They barricaded the doors with people inside, and they tried to light the place on fire, among other things. And so guess what? Now Ted Wheeler puts out this statement. This is hilarious. Look at this.
Last night, 200 to 300 people went to East Precinct intent on violence. The purpose was to attack the East Precinct facility and the people therein. When I say violence, I'm not talking about vandalism. I mean specifically the intent to commit violence against people. Exits were blocked. They were barricaded shut with cars and with 2x4s. Security cameras were disabled, and accelerants were used to set and grow fires. The attack was immediate, it was intentional, and it was planned. It was intended to cause serious injury or death, and it very well could have. After the events I described above, CS gas was used. CS gas was authorized by every agency involved, and its use was consistent with the threshold Governor Brown, Commissioner Hardesty, and I previously established. When you commit arson with an accelerant in an attempt to burn down a building that is occupied by people that you have intentionally trapped inside, you are not demonstrating. You are attempting to commit murder. This is not the first time that people have tried to set fire to a city building with people intentionally trapped inside. This can't be okay. Based on the briefing I received this morning from Chief Lavelle, Superintendent Hampton, and Sheriff Reese, I believe that city staff could have died last night. I cannot and I will not tolerate that. This is not peaceful protest. This is not advocacy to advance reforms or transform any system.
So now he's saying this is not a peaceful protest. Now he's saying he cannot and will not allow this to happen. Where were you last week, Ted? Oh yeah, you were joining the rioters last week. You were with them.
I stand with you no matter what.
If you had any question, if you had any doubt about whether or not this is nothing more than a political ploy, now you have your answer. Because when it is against federal agents and therefore Donald Trump, now Ted Wheeler is all for it. No problem. Doesn't see any problem with trying to burn down that building. But when it's his guys and his police and his responsibility, now it's unacceptable. I see. Now, he's finally, I think, started to realize that maybe all this chaos is not going to help the Democrats so much in this upcoming election. I think for a while they thought it would. They thought fomenting chaos across the country, racial division, hatred, riots, protests, that would be really good for them in the upcoming election. But I think now people are starting to get real tired of it, and the real question is, which side gets blamed for these happening? Well, I mean, who's going to blame Donald Trump for the fact that these people are trying to attack Donald Trump, right? So now Ted Wheeler's changing his tune. And isn't that interesting? Well, here's the police chief in Portland, what he had to say about it.
This is not about a movement. It's not about Black lives. It's not about racial justice. It's not about police reform. It's planned, coordinated attacks on police officers. And I feel that lives hang in the balance.
And last but not least, let's hear from one of the police officers in Portland who has just had it up to here.
I am half Black and half white. And the sad part is that I'm even having to say that because I think we have gotten so lost in the division of police versus Black or Black versus white or white versus minority that it is just creating more division. We're not getting anywhere.
All right, folks, that is all I've got for today. And gosh, what a tragedy that this is happening in Portland and other places across the country. Now, one last thing before we go, though, I just want to show you a couple of kind of humorous videos. This one is a pickup truck got stopped by Antifa rioters as they were trying to block the road, and the pickup truck was not stopping. So one of the tactics that Antifa uses is they bring bicycles or motorcycles up and block the road with those things to create a barrier to keep cars from moving so they can bash the windows in, drag the drivers out, beat them up, do whatever they want to do. Well, and like I've said before, these guys don't want to abolish the police. That's very clear. They want to become the police. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to take control of the streets like the police would. Well, this guy was having none of it, and when this Antifa guy dumped his motorcycle right in front of his truck, the truck just floored it and took off with the motorcycle underneath. That was pretty awesome. The other video I want to show you, and this is pretty disgusting, now they're starting to go into residential neighborhoods. And I don't know what the full story is on this one. There's apparently a woman who lives in this house who is very anti-Antifa or something like that. For some reason, she's wearing a swastika on her arm. So maybe she is a straight up white supremacist. I don't know. But nothing justifies what these Antifa guys are doing to this poor woman, with many, many green lasers literally blinding this woman as you watch on video. Watch this. So that's really disgusting. Antifa is beyond parody, they're beyond irony, and they need to be arrested and declared domestic terrorists. That's all there is to it. There needs to be some very serious repercussions for these young pasty-faced punks, these cowards that prey on women and innocent bystanders. and try to attack police every chance they get. They cannot be allowed to control the streets, whether that's in Portland or anywhere else. And I guess apparently it looks like Ted Wheeler is starting to figure that out. Thanks for watching Hot Zone. We'll see you next time. I'm Chuck Holton.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.